What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about who I think is making Sly 5. So they're slaving away right now. I don't know if that term's kind of outdated now, but they're working on it. They're working very, very hard, and we've talked about, obviously, like Sucker Punch, and then there's obviously a couple other ones that maybe come to the front of the discussion line, right, in terms of who could be making it, who makes sense. I kind of, I looked around and I said, who do I think makes sense for something like this, right? What would line up with job postings? What would line up with history? What would line up with whether they're owned by Sony or not owned by Sony? And I kind of came to this conclusion. So, again, obviously there is the Sucker Punches, and I maybe in terms of what I want the most, of course, I'd want the guys who originally did it. In fact, they've spoken very, very fondly of Sly. I think they've even said, like, they would one day want to make Sly. I just don't think, based off what's happening there, I really just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to be making Sly 5. I will say, I won't leave you guys in suspense too much longer, I'm going to say it's going to be Sumo Digital. So that's my bold prediction. I could very well be wrong, and I don't know if I necessarily want to be wrong in this case, but I mean, this is something that, as long as it's a developer that's somewhat likable or somewhat has done good things in the past, I'm down for. So Sumo Digital jumped out to me in a couple different ways, right? Number one, they're a pretty decent-sized team. This is not some small indie team. I guess this, we're not talking about like Rockstar, like gigantic, I don't know, any team that makes Call of Duty, right? We're not really talking about that, but this is a pretty big team, okay? They're not owned by Sony. That's an important one, right? And that, that could maybe, set off the red alarms and all that stuff. And I understand that. I just think the first thing maybe you do when you start to do this investigation, right, is look at Sony's first-party studios. And at the end of the day, much like, I would say, even with like Medieval, right, when you have these kind of games, a lot of times it's probably better and it's probably best that you go outside of what you have in terms of ownership, right? Because again, you look at, who would make it? Who would make it that's owned by Sony? You could even say like a Blue Point would make sense to do like a remake or a remaster, and they're technically not owned by Sony, at least not yet. But it doesn't seem like they're probably doing Metal Gear or doing just something non-Sly related. Sucker Punch seems pretty busy. Insomniac obviously is just the Marvel studio now. Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica. You can go down the line, and none of these studios seem, you could maybe look at some of the newer ones that they brought in, but they all seem to have their own kind of agendas, of what they want to do. So then you start to look at outside ones, and so that's how I got to Sumo Digital. I thought, okay, let's look at studios that are not owned by Sony, but maybe have that second party kind of relationship, which second party just means they're not owned by them, but they've made deals in the past where they've been exclusive. The games they've made have been exclusive. So Sumo Digital is one of those. They've jumped around quite a bit. I believe they made Little Big Planet 3. They also made Sackboy: A Big Adventure. That was their last game. Now, and that's really what drew me to it, right? In fact, it's kind of cheating, or it's kind of, I would say maybe it's even obvious if that's what you're looking for, right? Because you look at it and you say, okay, what's a studio that is, again, kind of like, crosses all the boxes, or, clicks off all the boxes? What's a studio that's like that has actually done this almost before? You know what I mean? And Sackboy: A Big Adventure is not, again, like an actual, next Little Big Planet game, but they've done that too. But it's, they have history basically touching Sony, intellectual properties and kind of handing off. Media Molecule is the ones that did the original two, and then they handed it off. So I think that makes a lot of sense for them to jump into Sly Cooper. That's really the biggest form of my argument, is they're not owned by Sony, but they've done stuff with Sony before, more than once. They're a big-ish team. They're not, again, like, and nothing against indie teams. I actually love a lot of indie games, but, they're not like a 10, 15-person studio. They're huge. And they most recently literally did a new game, for Sackboy, or for Little Big Planet, and it was really good. I played it. I got it around the time I played the PS5 version. It was actually on both, and it was a fantastic game. I would say it respected the source material. It definitely was different. Sly would be different. Like, obviously Sly is different than Little Big Planet, but like Sackboy is literally like a Little Big Planet spin-off game. It was more of a platformer, which Little Big Planet kind of is as well, but it just, I don't know, if you didn't play it yet, it's just not. It's not Little Big Planet 4. You know what I mean? Whereas Sly right? You have to fall in line with what, I mean, obviously there needs to be innovation and stuff like that, but you need to fall in line with what Sly Cooper is. I don't really think anybody wants kind of a spin-off game or like an arcade mode. I mean, you can have like an arcade mode in the game, but not like an arcade style game, right? It needs to be Sly. The final thing, and this, I saved to the end because I think it adds to my argument. At the same time, it doesn't like completely do anything, is they are hiring like mad. Now, what I've noticed, because I do tend to go on gaming company websites quite often, pretty much every developer in the world is like always hiring. That's just like a thing. They're always, everybody's always looking for talent. They are hiring at the current time. Now they have, I believe, more than one team. We're not talking about just literally one place, but they are hiring 193 positions. Okay, so they have a team, or they have multiple. I think it's 2 or 3 different studios. So they have them, and then they're also adding 109, or they were looking to add 193 positions. So normally, I guess this actually is a pretty big part of it, right? Normally, these companies will stack up and do this kind of stuff at the beginning of like a push for their next game, okay? That's normally how gaming developers do it. Is you'll see a mass, and I do mean a mass, hiring spree as they're leading into, and then once they're like deep in development, the job numbers come down, and then even towards the end, people may be leaving, people may be shifting. By the end of the game, when the game launches, they actually people tend to leave companies, they tend to switch around. So that's generally, you can see it with Naughty Dog has done it before, Sony Santa Monica. You have a big push. So what I do think is important is, what do we know about Sly 5 based off of Special Nick, that leaker that said that it's real, is it's very early in development. So we have to, I would say, the fact of the matter is, these guys, Sumo Digital, they are hiring like crazy. They're hiring like big names: lead game systems designer, senior game systems, principal game systems, senior gameplay programmer, senior network programmer. So actually what you're seeing is a lot of high positions, right, to fill in. Like these are really big things. So you do not do this. This is just a general, I think, I guess, word of caution if you're looking at any games. You're not normally hiring leads, seniors. You're not hiring them if you're halfway through development of your game. If you're doing that, your game probably has some problems because those people have left and you need to fill their spot. If you do it in the beginning, as you're leading into the game, becoming real, obviously that makes sense, right? Because you're trying to get that talent. So I would say, now what does this really mean? Well, no matter if it's Sly or not, it does mean Sumo Digital is gearing up, stocking up for a brand new game. Okay, so if you guys liked Sackboy: A Big Adventure, you can rest assured that like another game from them is coming. We just don't know what yet. But and you can make that point for a lot. I mean, there's like thousands of studios in the world, right? So I'm sure you could find other examples of studios that are kind of gearing up for like their next game, and it could fit the same argument. It's interesting. It's a studio Sony has history with. It's a studio that is not owned by them, but is in the mid. Like, they're not working on anything. You know what I mean? So it's not like, even if you look at, say, I don't know, Guerrilla Games, right? You could say, well, maybe they could do Sly, but like, we know they're working on X and Y game. Like, Sumo is in the middle of games, so we don't know what they're making right now. They have a history. They've interacted with Sony IPs in the past, such as Sackboy from Little Big Planet. They're gearing up for a game. I don't know, and we know Sly is in early development, so I feel like everything kind of makes sense. So this would be, maybe there's ones that make more sense, but I feel like if we're trying to go kind of off the beaten path and make a bold kind of claim, this would be it. So let me know what you guys think about all this stuff in the comments below. Who do you think is making Sly, if anybody's making Sly? Make sure, as always, you guys are subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, or subscribe to my second channel, or support us on Patreon or YouTube memberships, links are in the description below. Thank you for watching, guys, and I hope to see you all on the next video.